All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's live cooking demonstration. My name is Ryan Smith. I'm the Wellness Program Administrator at Georgia State University's Employee Development and Wellness Services. By trade, I am a registered dietitian, so I am always on the hunt for easy recipes that are also nutritious and tasty that we can work into our day-to-day habits. So today we are going to be making California veggie sandwiches, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about here in just a moment. But before we get started, I did want to cover a couple quick things. We are using the WebEx platform today, and we're going to be recording today's session. This recording will be made available to all participants, so you can view it again at a later time or share with a colleague who may not have been able to attend today. We upload recordings of most of our events to our EDWS YouTube page, which we'll be sure to share a link to, and there you can find previous cooking demonstrations, yoga, guided meditation, and more. So we encourage you to check that out. Throughout today's presentation, we are going to be keeping an eye on the chat. So if you've got any questions or comments about the recipe, please let us know in the chat. We'll be sure to address those at the end. Also, today I'm joined by my colleague, Cheryl Johnson-Ransaw. She's going to be monitoring the chat for any technical issues that may pop up. So if you're experiencing audio or visual issues, please send a chat box comment to all panelists. This will ensure that Cheryl can see it and help diagnose any issues that may arise. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So this is a very, very simple recipe, which, as I said, I'm always looking for things that are easy and healthy at the same time. Sandwiches are something that I think pretty much everyone's used to eating. They're very, very convenient, easy to grab and go, take it with you to work or wherever else you may be going. The problem with a lot of sandwiches is they're not really focused on health. It's pretty easy to just get a white bread, meat and cheese sandwich, which, don't get me wrong, it's delicious, but we're not quite getting the nutrient value that our body craves and needs. So today we're going to remedy that. We are going to make a sandwich that is packed with nutrients from all the different sources of vegetables. We're going to be swapping out the bread for a healthier version of bread, and we're going to talk about all the little substitutes we make along the way. Before we get started, in terms of equipment, you don't need too much for this. Cutting board is our main thing. I'm going to be using a chef's knife for most of my cutting. I'm going to switch to a serrated knife for the tomatoes, and I'll explain why in just a bit. And then you are going to need a grater because we're going to grate the carrot that we're using to get some nice little grated pieces, carrot shreds that we can top on the sandwich. And then the last thing worth mentioning is I have toasted some pieces of bread behind me, so a toaster oven or just a regular toaster will work great. Though you don't have to toast the sandwich, I think it really adds some nice texture, so I highly encourage that. So let's get started with our vegetables. What we're going to do is just prep everything so that we can throw it all on the sandwich. This is very much a no-cook recipe, no fancy skills required. Everything is just going to be getting the vegetables ready and then topping and building our sandwich. So why don't we start with our cucumber? We're going to use half of an English cucumber today. Now you can use a regular cucumber if you prefer, but the English cucumbers don't have seeds in them. They're a little bit narrower and longer, so some people like to use them for sandwiches or subs. Entirely up to you, though. A regular cucumber will do the trick. And all we're really going to do here is just cut these into small slices so that we can spread them out on the sandwich. Now, when I cut the cucumber, what I'm going to do is you'll see me curl my fingertips under my knuckles. I'm going to do this for pretty much every cut that I make today. And the idea there is that with this sort of claw grip, I can hold the cucumber, stabilize it on the cutting board, but the tips of my fingers are protected so that if my knife accidentally makes any contact with me, it's just going to take some skin off of my knuckles rather than my fingertips, which I do not want to happen. So using that grip, we are just going to cut some cucumber slices. Now this recipe is scaled to make 4 sandwiches, but you can easily scale it to make more or less as desired. 4 is just a nice number that makes use of a whole avocado, carrot, tomato, so on and so forth. So we'll just chop up this cucumber. If you have any leftover pieces, a-okay, you can eat them as a snack. We are using hummus today, so you could dip the leftovers in there and enjoy it, or you could throw them on a salad or do something else with them later on in your week. We're going to move these over to the side. Now, one of the benefits of cucumbers is they are a very water-rich vegetable. That's why they kind of have that appearance and that taste that they have. So vegetables are super great for a number of reasons, but one benefit that's often overlooked is they actually help us stay hydrated. So we need so much water in a day, which we can get from drinking beverages. However, certain foods like fruits and vegetables that are just naturally high in water content will actually help keep us hydrated throughout the day. So we kind of get a 2-for-1 deal here. In terms of nutrition, the fiber in the cucumber, especially in the peel, is really beneficial for a number of different things. And you're going to hear me talk about fiber like 100 times today because all these ingredients are very fiber rich. But the basic summary is fiber can help us with digestion, making sure things are moving through our system smoothly. It can help us with blood sugar control. It can help lower our cholesterol. If you've ever been told you have elevated cholesterol, fiber can help reduce that. And it can also give us feelings of fullness and satiety on less food, meaning when we eat foods like vegetables that are lower in calories, we still feel satisfied, and that's great for maintaining a healthy weight. So we'll move the cucumbers over to the side. In terms of the cuts that I did, I wasn't doing anything specific, just kind of some small slices so that we can fit it on the sandwich. This does tend to be a pretty thick and tall sandwich. If you saw that photo at the beginning, that thing is like a mountain. I've made this recipe quite a few times over the years and have tried to adjust the ratio to make it a little more manageable when you go to eat it. So if you want, you can cut these even thinner to sort of help manage that volume, but you'll see what we end up working with. Sometimes this sort of becomes a fork and knife sandwich for me if I get a little excited about how many toppings I'm putting on there. So let's move to the carrot next. What I've done is I've gone ahead and washed it and peeled it, and that's something worth noting. I've washed all the vegetables before I use them today. We want to rinse off any dirt or contaminants that may be on there. With the carrots, I do definitely recommend peeling them. When it comes to vegetables, a lot of people ask me as a dietitian, what's your opinion on organic versus just regular vegetables? And my big picture statement is always that if you are eating a vegetable, you are doing good for your body. Organic vegetables are definitely a little bit pricier, but you can get that regular vegetable and still get all the nutrients that you'd normally benefit from. The main reason people like organic options is that they're worried about like pesticides or contaminants like that. Carrots are a vegetable that are frequently on a list of vegetables that are, they'll call it like a dirty dozen list, where those are vegetables that tend to hold some more pesticides or contaminants just because of the nature of the vegetable. So one thing we can do is if you don't want to buy organic carrots, you can buy that regular carrot, rinse and peel it, and we're removing a lot of that exterior stuff, leaving us just with that nutritious part of the vegetable that we're looking for in our bodies. So don't fret about if you can't buy organic vegetables, you are still getting a great nutritional value and it is absolutely still healthy for you. I always want to just put that message out there because I know some people are very concerned about that. So what I do is I typically will cut the carrot into two pieces, so it's a little smaller and easier to manage. And you can use either the largest grates on your grater or the next largest size. That's up to you. And you are just going to hold this down, keep it firm and steady, and move the carrot against it. Now mind, as you shred up the carrot, of course, your hand is going to get closer to the grater. And it does not feel good to come into contact with the sharp part of the grater. So just be mindful of that. You may need to rotate and turn the carrot as you're doing that. Now, carrots are also incredibly nutritious. In addition to having a lot of fiber content like our cucumber friends, they also are a great source of vitamin A. They have a reputation for helping you see in the dark, giving you better vision. I will tell you that carrots will not actually give you supervision or super sight or really make your vision better, but what they will do is they'll keep things healthy. So if you have good vision now or healthy vision, carrots will help maintain that, but they're not going to enhance your vision. But if you have a deficiency, it can make a big difference. So I like to remind people they are good for your eyes, just not in the way we sometimes talk about. So as you get closer to the end of the carrot, if you are getting a little nervous, you can just eat this or use it for something else. We got quite a few shreds here. I'm going to go ahead and shred our other part just while we're managing that and just getting a few extra shreds. I'm really just going to be making one or two sandwiches on camera today just to show you how it's done. So for all 4 sandwiches, you'll want a full shredded medium carrot. Okay, and that is plenty of carrot shreds for what we're looking for. So we'll move those over to the side. And the reason we're shredding the carrots is if you think about a carrot, it's not a very good sandwich food or even like a salad food unless we shred it. Then it becomes a little less dense, a little less crunchy, which is nice for what we want on our sandwich. So we'll move that pile over there. And you can see we're starting to build a rainbow between the green and the orange. Of course, we're going to pull in some other colors, and we'll use our red tomato next. So for the tomato, I mentioned that I'm going to use a serrated knife. The reason for this is when you cut into tomatoes, we're just trying to get some nice thick slices. Tomatoes have a tendency to sort of, because they're very watery, they'll get kind of mushy or squished. Sometimes you'll press a knife into it, it feels like the whole thing's just flattening. But the teeth on a serrated knife will help you saw through it and keep the tomato nice and firm. So I'm just going to cut, like I mentioned, fairly thick slices because that's what I'm looking for in my sandwich today. If you want to do thinner slices, you can. Like I mentioned, I have a tendency to overfill my sandwiches, my wraps, pretty much anything I make. I try to put too many vegetables in it. So those are some nice thick slices there. I know that's going to be really tasty to bite into. Now, tomatoes I talk about very frequently on my cooking demos because they're one of my favorite vegetables. They are so nutritious. Great source of vitamin C, which is good for our immune system. Some vitamin A in there as well, like the carrot. And they're also a source of lycopene, which is an antioxidant. Now, antioxidants, what they do is they help fight free radicals in our body, which basically translates to these have some great cancer fighting or cancer preventative properties. So when we're trying to eat a healthy diet to reduce our risk of different diseases, tomatoes are a great one to incorporate in a variety of different ways. So they definitely have a spot on our sandwich today. So green, orange, and red, nice rainbow coming together. The other vegetable we're going to be using is, in total, you're going to need a cup of greens. This could be arugula, it could be spring mix, it could even be sprouts if you're someone who likes to do little sprouted greens on sandwiches. That's actually what the photo I showed at the beginning has. I'm just using a spring mix today. And this really isn't the star of our show or anything. Very nutritious for sure, but we just want a little bit of lettuce to add that nice crispness and texture when we bite into the sandwich. So a cup of your preferred greens, I've got that rinsed and washed, and we'll just keep that to the side. Now, our next vegetable or fruit, depending on how you look at it, is kind of our troublemaker, and that's our avocado. Now, the reason I call it a troublemaker is not for any nutritional reasons. Avocados are excellent for us. They're an incredibly heart-healthy fat. They bring a rich creaminess to things. They're frequently used as a replacement for like butter or other fats of that nature, but they're very heart-healthy because they're low in saturated fat and higher in the unsaturated fat. So to keep things heart-healthy, we try to keep that saturated fat value lower. The reason I call them a troublemaker, though, is sometimes it can be kind of hard to figure out, is my avocado ripe or not? When you buy it at the store, what we're looking for is we want it to give a little bit. So when you press into it with your fingers or your thumb, you should feel it giving and pushing slightly. Now, if your finger's like sinking into it, that avocado is probably past good. It might be very bruised. That's too much. Now, if you press into it and it feels like a rock, it's not ready yet, it's not ripe. So there's this sweet spot right in the middle that we're looking for that can be tricky to find. So I always kind of do a disclaimer before I do these on my cooking demonstrations because I never really know what's going to happen with the avocado. I'm doing my best to estimate from the outside, but there's sort of an art to finding ripe ones. If you do get one that feels a little hard, just keep it for a couple of days and it will tend to continue to ripen, and then you can use it when it's ready. Now, one trick people will tell you for finding out if the avocado is ripe or not is the stem up here. You can pull that off, and if you see the nice normal green color of an avocado, that indicates that it's ripe. The problem with doing this is if you do this in the store, you're like exposing the outside air to part of the avocado, and it will make the avocado go bad faster. So it's really not a super great thing to do at the store, so that's why I prefer to just do that pressing technique. But I've got this one at home. It feels pretty good. I'm seeing some green when I pull that stem off, so I'm going to have faith that things are going to work for this guy. So with the avocado, if you've never cut into one before, there's a large, really rock-hard pit in the middle of it. You cannot cut through it, so do not attempt to. So what you'll do is you'll find that stem, and you're going to line your knife up. Imagine like a vertical line going all the way around the avocado. So we'll line our knife up with it, and we're going to press pretty gently into it. If it's a ripe avocado, you shouldn't have too much trouble until you make contact with that pit. And then we are going to slowly press the knife delicately and rotating around the avocado. Be very careful while you do this until you come all the way around. Now, if your avocado is nice and ripe, hopefully at this part, you should be able to pull it apart very easily like that. You can see this one's looking pretty good. We got lots of nice green there, a little bit of browning, might be some bruising that happened, but still very edible, still very tasty. Now to get this middle part out, you can scoop it with a spoon if you want. Frequently what I'll do is just do that with the knife and then twist it and it'll pop right out. I'll throw that away real quick. Now that middle part is obviously not edible. Do not try to eat that. From here, what we're going to do is we are going to actually combine the avocado with a couple other ingredients, give it a little bit of flavor, and we want to be able to mash it ideally. Now, if you've got a ripe avocado, this should be pretty easy. It's not very ripe. You may run into some struggles, but you can get through it with a little bit of perseverance. So to get the avocado out, I usually will take a spoon and just try to get right underneath that skin. I can tell this one's pretty ripe because the skin's coming off easily. If you notice the skin is sticking to it, it probably was not quite ready, but that came out really clean, so that's a good sign. And we'll move that into the bowl. And then you will repeat that process with the other half of your avocado. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of salt, lemon juice, and olive oil, and we're going to mash this all together to make basically an avocado spread to put it on our sandwich more easily. If you wanted to, you could just cut the avocado into slices and then put that on the sandwich, but I like the smoothness of the spread. I think it goes well with the hummus that we're going to add to the sandwich. If you have a small food processor at home, that is absolutely the easiest way to do what we're about to do. But I recognize that not everyone might have one of those, so we're going to do it the old school method or the manual method. One thing you can do, I would say this is kind of the hardest version, but everyone will have these tools. You get a bowl, you'll add, we're going to do 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So very, very little, just 1/8 of a teaspoon. We're going to do 1/2 tablespoon of lemon juice, give it some nice sort of tangy flavor. And you can use fresh lemons. I'm just using 100% bottled lemon juice today for convenience. And then we'll do 1/2 tablespoon of olive oil, which is another heart-healthy oil. So the, I think, more difficult way would be using a spoon. You would press into the avocado until it's mashed up. Now, what you may want to do is using the tip of the spoon, sort of cut into the avocado with it, or you could just use a knife again and break it into smaller pieces, because when the pieces are really large, they'll slip around and they'll slide around. So it might be easier to break it up, because again, our goal is to mash it into a more even consistency. And from here, you could use that back of the spoon, press it into the bowl, and continue to work that until you get what you're looking for. Another technique that you might try is if you've got two bowls that fit into each other, you can just sort of smash it between the bowls. This is a smaller size bowl, but the same concept applies. I've got those avocado pieces in there, and I can use this to just press into it. Now, you're going to dirty up two bowls, but I find that this is a pretty effective technique for mashing things. And I'll show you there very quickly. That made, pretty fast work of that avocado. And I'll continue to do this and mash it around. And it doesn't have to be super smooth. If you have a food processor and a couple pulses, you're going to get something really even and consistent. But we're not going for perfection here. We're just throwing it on a sandwich, trying to keep things simple. I'll scrape that extra stuff off of there. And then I'm just going to give it a stir to make sure that we're picking up the salt, the olive oil, the lemon juice, and maybe mash it a couple more times. But it's basically kind of getting into a guacamole style texture. If you wanted to, if you were really looking to save time, you of course could just buy some store-bought guacamole. This is much cheaper, and you have a lot more control over the flavors that you put into it. I'm going to rinse my hands off real quick because I got guac all over them. Okay, so we have cut up our ingredients. Our vegetables are all good to go. So why don't we go ahead and start assembling our sandwich? So I'm just going to use this here and grab the bread. Now this is some very nicely toasted bread. Pretty excited about that. So let's talk about the bread choice today. I am using 100% whole wheat bread, and hopefully you can see that there. Whenever we're trying to select a grain, and a grain could be bread, could be rice, pasta, looking for the whole grain or whole wheat varieties is going to greatly enhance the nutrition. So think of white bread kind of as your baseline. It's got some carbohydrates in it. There's not really a lot else happening because that white bread used to be wheat, and it's been heavily refined and processed, and they've removed a lot of the nutrients in doing so. With 100% whole wheat bread, what happens is we get more of that original grain from the wheat. It's going to have more protein, it's going to have more B vitamins, and it's going to have more fiber, which we were also getting from our vegetables. So Whole wheat bread is just leagues above white bread in terms of nutrition. So that's why I buy the 100% whole wheat kind. You can get any brand you want. Just look for those words, 100% whole grain or 100% whole wheat. Same thing applies to pasta, cereals, other things of that nature. So we've got a more nutritious bread base than we normally would when making a sandwich. And what we're going to do, running out of room here, to start our sandwich off, I'm going to use hummus, and I'm just using store-bought hummus. If you really want to get fancy, you can, of course, make your own. And I'm going to spread about 2 tablespoons. If you want to be really precise, you can. That's good if you want to, keep the measurements and know the exact nutrition value of everything. But you can also just eyeball it with the hummus. And we are going to spread that. Measuring spoon's not the best use for this. Let me get another spoon. There we go. We're going to spread that on that first piece of bread, and that's sort of our base. We're giving some nice salty, flavorful texture. If you're not super familiar with hummus, it's made of chickpeas, and it's got just a very nice, salty, savory flavor to it. It's great for dipping veggies in or putting on a sandwich. So we've got that base piece of bread here, and from here, we are going to start building this sandwich. What I recommend doing is putting the vegetables that you're more worried about escaping on first, because they'll sort of stick to the hummus. So I like to start with some of our greens. So I'm going to do a couple greens here. Then we'll get some cucumber slices in there. We'll do some shredded carrot. And I'm going to make an absolute mess. I'm doing this in the hummus lid now, but typically I'll just do it on the cutting board. Then let's get a nice big giant slice of tomato there. Okay, so we've got the hummus, we've packed in a lot of fiber from the vegetables. The next thing we're going to do is an ingredient we haven't talked about yet. I'm going to use a slice of provolone cheese. You can use the cheese of your preference. Swiss cheese would be good on here. We're just doing provolone, nice and flavorful. And this is going to add a little bit of protein to the dish. This is an entirely, so far, it's mostly plant-based between the hummus and all the vegetables. We're going to add a little bit of dairy with the cheese, but it is going to help boost our protein content because we've got protein coming from the whole wheat bread, which I mentioned is higher in protein, and the cheese is going to help us out with that as well. So now we've got a nice little mountain there. Look at all those vegetables peeking out at you there. And to top that off, making sure we got all the ingredients, yep, lettuce, cucumbers, carrots, tomatoes, we're going to take our other piece of bread and we're going to take some of that avocado spread, and just like we did with the hummus, we're going to spread a nice thick layer of that on the other part. And that'll make sure that we've got good tasty things on both pieces of bread. And that's kind of just like avocado toast there. And then we are gonna press that down. So let me show you. Yeah, you can see how thick that is. Look at all that content inside, all those good veggies coming in there and making for a very nutritious sandwich. So in terms of calories, this is going to be about 490 calories. So it may not look like much, but this is actually a very dense and very filling sandwich. And that's because of all the fiber that we have is going to make it feel really fulfilling and satisfying. Things like the avocado are very rich in fats, the heart-healthy fats, but they do add a good number of calories, which is help balancing out this meal because we want a balance of carbohydrates, like our bread, fats like our avocado and olive oil, and protein, which we're going to get a little bit from the bread, but also from that slice of provolone cheese. So a really nice mixture there. We kept the sodium fairly low because we only added 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt to our avocado mixture. The store-bought hummus has some sodium in it, and of course the bread and cheese have some salt in it. So I was trying to adjust for those and keep the overall sodium that we added to it fairly low. In terms of protein, there's actually going to be about 19 grams of protein in this, because each slice of bread is going to add 4 to 5 grams of protein. Our slice of cheese is going to add about 6 grams of protein, and vegetables have small amounts of protein in them, especially the hummus, that it'll contribute to the overall protein amount. So about 490 calories, roughly 19 grams of protein, super, super high in fiber, great way to get your vegetables in, and we're eating a sandwich, which is just tasty and convenient. So this recipe would in total make 4 sandwiches. You can keep them in the fridge. I will say that as you cut the vegetables up, things like the tomato have a tendency to lose some of their firmness a little bit as the days go on. So while you can keep these in the fridge for up to 4 days, they're definitely best consumed on the earlier part of that time period. It's great to make if you've got a household full of other people and you want something quick and easy for lunch. You just chop up the ingredients and throw them on that sandwich bread. So we are going to be sending out a copy of the recipe so that you can make it at home and see what you think of it. It'll also include the full nutrition label. So if you're curious about the fiber, the vitamin and mineral content, all that will be included. Now, in terms of substitution, because I know people always want to find ways to customize the food, there's a couple different things we can do here. So we use whole wheat bread because we were making a sandwich, pretty easy. But not everyone's a big fan of that. You could definitely make this into a wrap if you wanted to. Some modifications I would make if you want to go the wrap route. So first, use a whole wheat tortilla. We want to keep that whole grain, whole wheat aspect going, more protein and fiber and B vitamins. So you can get a whole wheat tortilla. The cheese could stay the same. Shred those carrots. You may want to dice the cucumbers so they're in smaller pieces. And I would definitely recommend dicing the tomato. Since when you're biting into a wrap, you don't really want a giant slab of tomato like this, like you might want on a sandwich. So dicing the cucumber and tomato, and you could roll the whole thing up in a wrap, still spread that avocado on there, spread that guac on there, and that's another way you could enjoy this. In terms of the vegetables, we work with carrots, cucumbers, and tomatoes today, and some of those greens. But if there's another vegetable topping that you think would be great on here, go for it. I know some people might like to do something spicy like jalapenos. You could do banana peppers on here. Adding some things like pickles, which are kind of like cucumbers, but got a lot more salt in them. Something to be aware of if you do add pickles or pickled something, you will be increasing the sodium slightly. But definitely experiment. Think about other veggies that you could slice up into small pieces and spread on the sandwich, and you could definitely make it your own. We mentioned the cheese could be swapped out for other types of cheeses if you're not a big fan of provolone. I do think Swiss would be a great exchange there. So lots of options to mix and match. So I'm going to take a quick look at the questions because I saw we had a couple comments pop up and we got a little bit of time here. Here's a question. What do you think about buying a mixed salad with vegetables already in it and putting that on your sandwich? So I'm a dietitian, right? So I'm always looking for ways to make things healthier. Fruits and vegetables, we just don't get enough of them in our diet, or most of us don't get enough of them. So yeah, if there is a convenient way to speed up this recipe, to just increase the likelihood of you eating vegetables, go for it. I know pre-mixed salads are a little pricier, but you could absolutely buy that and follow the same principles here of focusing on the vegetables, choosing a healthier grain choice, limiting things like the salt that we're putting into it. So yeah, if you really want to make this in a flash, you could do some store-bought hummus. You could do some avocado, maybe even doing the store-bought guac. Get those mixed veggies, get an emphasis on that and put it on there. So I do think that's a nice time-saving tip if you don't mind spending a little bit of the extra money. Here's a question. Are cooked tomatoes still nutritious? That's a great question. They absolutely are. So whenever we cook any vegetable, there are some changes that happen. Different nutrients hold up differently under heat. So some things might break down, some things may change and maybe even be enhanced. But the big takeaway and the important thing to note is when you cook a vegetable, it is still a vegetable. You're still getting fiber. You're still getting the water content. You're still getting the vitamins and minerals. So I always encourage people, don't fret over the super small details like, oh, does a tomato lose 10% of its vitamins or something like that? If you're eating the tomato, you're doing good for your body. And cooked tomatoes are so good in pasta dishes and all sorts of things. So they are absolutely still nutritious. And that extends to any vegetable. So great question. Oh, here's a compliment about the sandwich looking tasty. Thank you for that. What do you think about lunch meat? Is it healthy? I'm really glad you asked that because we made this plant-based today, right? Mostly vegetable ingredients and then the cheese. But a lot of you are probably thinking a traditional sandwich, I might have some turkey on there or bologna or ham, whatever it may be. When it comes to lunch meat, that's going to add some protein to the dish, which can be really beneficial. That protein is good for our muscle health, skin health, all sorts of functions in our body. The thing to note about the processed lunch meat we buy is it does tend to be very high in salt. That's done as a preservative so it can last longer, and it's also done to give it some flavor. What I recommend people doing if they like the convenience of lunch meat, first try to choose a healthier meat if you can. So something like turkey is a lean meat, so getting some sliced turkey breast, that's going to be a really, really good choice. The second thing would be to look for the low sodium varieties. Most brands, whether it's like the big name brands like Oscar Mayer or whether it's a store brand like Kroger or Publix brand turkey, they'll usually have a low sodium version of it. Usually it'll say low sodium in blue, but some of the labels are a little different. So look at the nutrition label on the back, compare the sodium content of the lunch meat that you're buying, and try to get one that's a little bit lower in salt. While we don't necessarily want to make processed lunch meat an everyday item, getting a lean choice that's lower in sodium and then combining it with healthy vegetables and whole grains is a nice way to balance a meal. So I would absolutely encourage that if that's something that would make this dish more tasty for you. This is also a good thing to make if you've got kids or younger people in your household. Sometimes it can be hard to get them to enjoy vegetables. So taking some familiar foods like a turkey and cheese sandwich and adding small amounts of veggies to it can help acclimate them to the taste of that. Or if you're just an adult who's not as experienced with eating vegetables, it can help you as well. Okay, I think we have covered the questions and comments for today. So thank you everyone so much for attending. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to learn a new recipe with me, go through these steps. Like I mentioned, we're going to send a copy of the recipe card, so you'll get all the instructions and the nutrition information so you can make these California veggie sandwiches yourself at home. You're also going to receive an email with a link to a short survey where you can let us know what you thought of today's presentation. We're always looking for constructive criticism and feedback so we can make our future programs even better. With that being said, we do offer a variety of programs each month. We do cooking demonstrations about twice a month, and we do other things from guided meditation to yoga to our snack and share support group to mindfulness exercises, all sorts of great material out there. If you're not already on our mailing list, you can email me at rsmith250@gsu.edu, and we'll put that email in the chat. And we'll get you on our mailing list. Each Monday, we send out a weekly email letting people know what's going to be going on. We also upload most of our events to the USG web calendar. So if you're joining us from another institution, you can definitely find us there. But we also have people from our whole USG family on our mailing list. So we'd love to add you and keep you up to date on all of our offerings. And I see Cheryl just put the email in the chat. Thank you so much, Cheryl. So reach out to me if you're not on the mailing list. We'll make sure to get you there. And keep an eye out for our follow-up email, which should be coming out later today or tomorrow. With that being said, thank you again, everyone, for attending. Hope you have a great rest of your day and an enjoyable weekend. Thank you.